Welcome to Africa in View. My name is Nyamgul Agaji. Remember, this program is a program that will bring you things that concern Africa, no matter what it is, agriculture, business, tech, and all that. And today we'll be focusing on tech in Africa, its future, and what we need to do to make it grow to where we want it to be in the small time that we have. And we also are going to take you on a trip to the Serengeti National Park in Tanzania. If you've never been there or you've never heard about it, today is the opportunity to do so and plan your next vacation, maybe to go to Tanzania. Well, I still have my crew here in the house. We have Olamide, Onwuka to my far left. We also have Aghogho, Ayanagho next to him. And then we have our guest in the house. We just caught him and said, you have to stay here and, bear the burden of African news with us before we discuss what we're going to be discussing. And his name is Oladipupo Bolaji. First of all, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
For the rest of you, Olamide and
I'm welcome. Even if you don't welcome me, I'm welcome.
Don't mind.
This week around Tuesday, we were talking about Make-A-Wish Day, and I asked a lot of people what their wish would be if they had one wish to make. What it would be? What would you wish for, Olamide?
There are lots of wishes, but actually,
one
wish. I can't just pull it out of the heart like a
that means it's not been bothering you enough.
I'm telling you, like I have a million wishes.
What would be your wish?
$1 billion.
$1 billion?
Yeah.
What would be your wish, Oladipupo?
It would be to propagate more tech education in Africa.
I knew he would say that. But the beauty of it is that about 90% of the people I asked this question did not even think about themselves. They were thinking about Africa as a whole, and they said what they needed to see if they were to make this wish is for us to have good leadership in Africa. And it was just apt, because everybody just felt that if the leadership was good enough, every other thing will be added onto us as it is. But well, before we delve into the rest of the program, let's just take the news making the headlines today.
Nigeria's presidential initiative to unlock the healthcare value chain aims to produce at least 70% of the country's pharmaceutical needs locally by 2030 and create tens of thousands of new jobs in life sciences manufacturing. A new training institute, Empower Academy Nigeria, will also be established to build a skilled workforce and support sustainable growth in the sector. The federal government has announced it will begin paying the remaining 5 months of the 35,000 naira wage award arrears to its workers in monthly installments. The first payment will be made immediately after April 2025 salaries as part of efforts to fulfill agreements on staff welfare despite funding challenges. The Supreme Court has overturned a federal high court judgment that had awarded over 22 trillion naira against Union Bank in a commercial dispute dating back over 25 years. The court ruled that lower court failed to follow clear legal precedents, bringing relief to the bank and easing concerns about its financial stability. The federal government has directed WAEC and NECO to fully adopt computer-based testing for all exams by May-June 2026, starting with objective papers this November. The move aims to reduce exam malpractice, while a national review of examination standards is also underway. The Minister of Interior, Dr. Olubunmi Tunji Ojo, announced plans to create a centralized system for real-time verification of travel documents to combat immigration and document fraud. Speaking during a meeting in Abuja with UK Minister David Hansen and British delegates, he also revealed that Nigeria's EU visa solution platform would launch on May 1st and proposed a regional border control strategy. Namibia's Agricultural Minister Mark Albert Hengari has been sacked and denied bail after being accused of raping a 16-year-old girl 5 years ago and allegedly trying to bribe her to withdraw the case. This marks the first major scandal for President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, who took office last month and had appointed Hengari despite an alleged ongoing investigation since November 2024.
beautiful. Before the news, we were talking about leaders in Africa, and we just a few days ago we saw a story from Kenya where a member of parliament did empowerment for students, did bursary of 3 million Kenyan shilling, and he rented a canopy of 5 million. The canopy and the seats and everything was worth 5 million, and the bursary was 3 million naira. Kenyan shilling worth.
That's like penny wise pound foolish.
It was crazy. Right. That was a
absolutely.
I was wondering what would have happened if they just took a football field and did bursary worth 8 million instead of 3 million.
But for me, I just feel like that was totally uncalled for. How could you do that? How could you?
Actually, it was not.
Maybe it's not bursary. Actually,
it wasn't for the bursary. Exactly. That's what I was saying. It wasn't for the bursary. It was for
if you put it that way. But for the news that we have heard, what really struck you, Aghogho?
You know, JAMB has been going on for a while now, and I was seeing a lot of backlash here and there. I mean, why would you say people should write exam 6:30 a.m. and it's a computer-based exam, right?
They have denied that anyway. But even then,
I have someone that had to leave the house at 5 a.m. just to get to have
me too.
By 6 o'clock. So there's nothing they want to tell. You are saying your own. Me, I'm saying my experience that I took someone. Anyways, that brings me to the WAEC and NECO. I think it's going to be a very good development. Switching to CBT exams. But then, are we ready for it?
Sorry,
hope they will not bring this 6:30 a.m. registration stuff.
Just to ask, the CBT, since you're making the exam CBT, I think for WAEC now, I'm aware that it's both theory,
yes,
and MCQ, that's multi-choice questions.
Yeah.
So does that mean it's going to be strictly and fully MCQ?
Oh, okay, that's a good question to ask. But you've been involved with JAMB, the CBT. I think you were there at the onset when all those things were done. How would you rate the level of preparedness for WAEC to also imbibe this CBT thing?
Yeah, I think good question. I could remember during that time, 2013, when JAMB wanted to switch from PBT, paper-based testing, to CBT, and I was privileged to project manage, contribute to the code at some point based on where I was working there. So it was the same conversation too. Are we ready? What about the infrastructure? How will it go? Internet penetration is low. We'll be able to administer some questions over MCQ. So those were valid questions, but more than a decade now, JAMB has pulled it through and is like second to none now. So I think for coming to WAEC too, they are going to be able to at least pull it through. However, I share a concern because there are some questions that didn't lend themselves to MCQ. So for example, I want an image, so how would that image come up? Biology.
How do you label
biology questions? You want
how do you show your workings in mathematics?
So so that's another.
So those are questions because
my team once had that challenge to then for one of the universities that were doing CBT, and we had to use LaTeX. So LaTeX is a way that you can render equations on the computer, but it just require another learning curve, for the candidates. Would they be able to learn how to do their sigma integration?
Who's going to teach them? That's another thing.
So that's another thing.
I think they usually have...
Even now this year, JAMB had a problem with some CBT centers because the machines wouldn't work. And these people who were supposed to write there did not... They didn't make any provisions for them to write somewhere else. So they have missed that 1 year. That is what it is. And I hear, I don't know if that is right or wrong, but I hear that JAMB doesn't own any of the CBT centers. They rent from people who already own these computers. It's not JAMB's property.
I think it's basically partnership. They partner, if I'm not mistaken, they partner computer centers, those ones that have, the adequate infrastructure that they require. and then they go into partnership with them, and then they get to accredit them if they meet certain, criteria that they have set. But for me right now, looking at, the instruction for JAM and NECO to adopt it, the biggest concern still remains, for example, JAM, they have mock exams. So mock exams basically is just like a test run to see if they're actually prepared for the exam process itself.
So does WAEC.
So are we going to be having mock exams where WAEC will implement this kind of facilities, and can you accommodate all the students for this mock exam?
Keeping in mind
several questions to answer.
Keeping in mind also that WAEC is actually West Africa.
Not just Nigeria.
So how is the federal government planning to sort those things out before 2026?
So I would say that, so I don't know if for WAEC it will just be the objective part,
I want to believe that's what it will be.
And not the theory.
Not the theory again.
Part. Yeah. So because JAMB has always been objective, so it was very easy to transition into CBT. So for WAEC, if they are transitioning into the CBT part, that would be very easy. In terms of scope and challenges, Nigeria has very wide landscape, 774 local governments. And even for JAM that time, we also had to administer for some 4 out country, London, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, and I think Ghana, if I'm not mistaken. But they were able to pull it through. And like you said, it's always a partnership. So some universities will have their CBT center that they use for post-JAM. So they make that available. There are business centers too, and I think some couple of centers in JAM's state offices, just like that.
Okay, so my concern is that JAM is one day. People have to leave their primary location to a secondary location where they have to write this exam. Sometimes people have to travel. If you're coming from my village now to write JAM, wherever you're going to write JAM, the closest place will be like at least 30 kilometers away. And then these children, some of them need to go and stay with relations or friends or anybody because they want to be able to go there on time. Now, this is a one-off thing. WAEC takes 1 month. NECO takes 1 month at the least. Inside that time, you have practicals. Then you have the written exams, which includes objectives that we call, and then the essays that we call. Now, you're talking about bringing these things to WAEC, bringing CBT to WAEC.
1 year.
Yeah. So inside 1 year or even 5 years, that will mean every child that is supposed to write WAEC should be computer literate. And I tell you, there are children who graduate from secondary school in this Nigeria that have still never set their eyes on a computer. No matter how we think the computer is common nowadays, that is that. So maybe you will help me make sense of it. You're very optimistic as a tech guy, and you know that these things are possible. But really, are they possible? Is it possible for them to accomplish this for WAEC and NECO within even 5 years?
Looking at the number of schools, you didn't have that, and their remoteness.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So what I think will happen is that at least some schools some candidates will need to move to other school from the remote villages to the center town. The other question as to are the candidates or the students ready? I'll say yes. Number one, they've been using smartphone.
That's an assumption.
No,
that's an assumption. That is an assumption.
In my village, some people still don't use.
So even in your village, even if they don't use smartphone, if they are going to write JAM, they will use CBT. And JAM has been there for more than a decade, using CBT. So, and don't also
let me give you a scenario. Let me give you a scenario from my village to the nearest township that you're talking about is 5,000 naira to get there. To just get there, you've not talked about accommodation, and because of that distance, I'm not sure a lot of people have relations or friends that stay in the town because they don't meet.
Yeah.
So how is this WAEC person going to leave my small village to the nearest CBT center.
So I have a contrary, so I understand the challenges, but I have a contrary proposal. I think we should not use one basket fit all for every candidate. It should be a choice. That even in the countries that we aspire to, be like, they give you choice. So you have choices of whether you want to do paper-based testing or computer-based testing. So I think that's what I would advocate for. Even for this jam that we've
I buy that totally.
It's a good idea. Just leave it open-ended and let the people decide based on the infrastructure they
because
have.
I was talking to an education expert and he was saying that if you do this thing, it may not work. The danger is if you say you are going to do it private public partnership and then you are removing education maybe to the private sector and all that is a dangerous thing, because education should never leave government entirely. It should be a government thing. So to just say private partnership will give us the opportunity to achieve that is a danger on its own to education. So, well, maybe this suggestion will go a long way and schools will start to evolve into what it would be. Okay. So, but generally in Africa, today we're talking tech and the future of tech in Africa. So where do we stand now in the tech world? Because it's a competitive world, and if you're not there, you're not there. Where do we stand as Africa?
Yeah, so if we're trying to rate maybe like a 1 to 10, I would say we are still 3.5 on a scale of 10. So, and why you want to ask me is because while tech, enables us to leapfrog into a lot of things and catch up, tech also still relies on infrastructure. And you can't take your way out of bad infrastructure. So you can't just take your way out of bad infrastructure. So you still need power. You still need, all those heavy infrastructure to really drive tech forward. So, but having said that, in terms of capacity of Africans to really adopt technology and to make something good out of it, I would say that we're at par with other continents. So we have bright minds, we have young people. 60% of the population of Africans are people under the age of below 30. And the energy is there. So if you see the way even young Africans use tablets, phones, they are able to write computer programs and all that. So talent is there. Education is not there yet. We need to improve. Infrastructure is not yet there, but the people willingness to learn, because as Africans we are rugged, the environment has toughened us, and tech is kind of soft. That's why I call it software. So when I give an African boy or a girl opportunity, you just got that they're able to do so well.
But that's what worries us generally, because it's like you're having a Ronaldo and Messi without a football. The infrastructure is the football. They have to play it for us to know how good they are. Now that the infrastructure is not there, what is missing? Is it a policy thing? Is it a funding thing? What is missing that is making the infrastructure to be lacking?
So I think first is that we need to increase funding for infrastructure. And
you mean who?
Everybody. So first, government will play a role, individual will also contribute, and so that we can have shared resources. So let's break it down. For example, so we are in the age of AI now, and AI can do a lot of things, but number one, you need even access to the machines and computers to be able to do AI. Unfortunately, for the past 2 years, these things has become expensive due to, for example, in Nigeria, due to the foreign exchange and due to inflation and all that. So that makes the devices very expensive. And we still have that gap, and now devices are expensive. So like your analogy of the ball, you need to put the computer in front of an African child for that African child to practice and code. So in our schools, we are still writing code on pen and paper. People are still graduating without having interaction with the computer. So that is where the investment and funding needs to come to provide those devices and equipment and have those centers where people can go to. Just the same way we make the other POS center, for example,
make it common.
Viticus common. We need to make technology centers in Africa as common as that.
Okay, for me, there was a time I did a story on tech hubs in Nigeria. I mean, I traveled as far as going to Oyo State. I went to Oyo State. I went to Ibadan. I went to Ogun State. That was when I went to the Ogun State Tech Hub. You might know where it is. And then I realized that there were lots of projects being embarked upon by different state governments. And also, I want to mention the 3MTT. I'm sure you know about the 3MTT. So, would you say that you're getting that body language that this government really understands the potential that technology holds in the 21st century?
So, I would say yes. And the reason will be that for the current minister for
digital economy,
Bosun Tijani, he started the first tech hub in Nigeria, in Yaba.
So, before he became minister?
Yeah, before I became minister, and that was the first tech hub. So, remember at some point, Meta CEO was in Nigeria to come, ministers and everybody were there. So I think that template is trying to scale at the federal level, which is good. The problem with the other hubs outside Lagos is that maybe it's because there's no support for them. So you just go that they are not well run, and so there needs to be more effort with stakeholders' effort to ensure that we don't just create a beautiful place and call hub. How do we get pipeline of talent into that, and who are the people that will hold people that are coming there, instructors, and help them, and what are the goals and KPIs for those hubs, what do we want to see. And so I think that will be the next thing that I think we should focus on. We have the infrastructure in terms of building. I know there's also an effort to get broadband across
fiber optics.
That's another challenge.
Yes, so a combination of those things will need to be in place before we can actually.
Yeah, I'm interested in that pipeline that you said of talents that will feed the hubs, because before you can access what is obtainable at the hub, you must have reached a particular level. And to raise a generation of tech savvy people, it shouldn't start from the hub level. So what policies do you want to see as a tech person that will make room for this pipe that you're talking about that will feed the hubs?
So I think first will be to go back to colleges of education. We've been kind of overlooked them in all our conversation, but that's really one of the pipeline where we produce teachers, and we need to start producing teachers that will teach information technology or IT in schools, so that at early childhood education, primary and secondary school, we can introduce some of this. And it won't just be that you have a computer teacher that just comes once a week, but you have you have a mathematics, an English teacher.
Every teacher is computer
lab.
That they are allowed to use.
Yeah,
because I had one in my school, and we were not allowed to use it. We had a full hall of computers in my secondary school. We would just peep through the window. Oh yes, those are our computers. Okay. I was there for 6 years, and I only entered that place.
Were they still complete?
I didn't use mine.
Not that once I entered into that place, just once. And what we went there to do, they just wanted to show us the power button. It was one computer they put on. The whole class gathered around that computer. They put it on.
That was it.
I don't know what the guy does. The minute it showed, say, okay, back to class. And so I think that's another thing.
So we're coming back to this policy because on the one hand, just a few weeks ago, or days or whatever, the government was talking about the fact that no student should be allowed to use phones, to use tabs, to use anything because whatever reason they gave. And immediately after that, they now came up with a policy that CBT should also be replicated for WAEC and NECO and all that. So policy-wise, I don't know whether our governments, not just Nigeria, has a direction that they're going that would be deliberate enough to say that they want to create a generation of tech-savvy people. So I go back to my question, what would you advise them? Okay, you have mentioned colleges of education and catching them young. Does it not go beyond that?
Yeah, so policy-wise, it goes beyond that, because once we have the teachers, we have the infrastructure, then we also now need to have the instructional materials. The course materials needs to be updated to reflect. So we're talking about two generations now, the younger ones and the people like even post-secondary. So post-secondaries now, what are they learning? What are we teaching them? Yeah. So it's good to understand the history of technology, but we need to teach them what they need to what will add value to them at the moment. So that is very important. So that's why I said it's just a combination of efforts, policy, infrastructure investment, curriculum.
Very important curriculum.
So there's actually something in my mind. I mean, since we're talking about Africa, we're looking at Africa as, an emerging, because I put it, I mean, we've seen a lot of innovations in fintech. We've seen in AI. I mean, there are different young guys going into, especially the fintech, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa. You see different payment solutions come up. Do you think Africa can get to that point when we can say, look, we are at this level or we are at this trajectory to compete with the rest of the world in terms of, our creativity, our innovation, our dynamism, the ability to think out of the box tech-wise?
So, yes, we are. But take a step back to the fintech that you mentioned. Why did we have very super growth, unicorn in fintech? It boils back to infrastructure. The banks actually did the work of infrastructure, BVN, and all those things that now allow fintech to be able to ride on it, and was a success. So that heavy work that the banks and government did in terms of financial inclusion is also what we need to transfer to health, to agriculture, to other sectors, and replicate that.
I just have to ask this question. I know we don't have so much time, but we have to talk about venture capitalists. We see a lot of venture capitalist companies or organizations being selective in terms of, I know it's an investment, but you see a lot of brilliant tech ideas and you see a lot of people coming up with brilliant innovations. But what do they keep decrying? Lack of funding. Yet you have venture capitalists and organizations who can invest in these things. So I want you to put yourself in a position, because I've actually been part of a startup before, a tech startup. It's actually a cab hailing service. And I know one of the major challenges that we faced was having to finance it from our pocket. So for venture capitalists now, what would you say to them in terms of support for, tech-driven organizations or innovations?
So I would say that they should look beyond fintech and start funding.
Because it looks like they are paying attention to fintech. Yes.
So they should start funding other startups. So, in venture capital funding, it's really if you fund 10, you're only expecting to get returns from maybe 2 or 3. So it's usually 2%, 2 over 3. So we need them to start shifting focus from fintech to other tech, agri-tech.
Okay. Now, as we're wrapping up, there's a question Aghogho asked you before now, and we need to just go back to that. Maybe it wasn't captured. She said, what are the African countries that we can look at and say these are the model tech hubs or model tech countries, model countries that other countries can emulate, in terms of tech? What are the greatest, I don't want to use the word greatest, but what countries are
pace setters
far ahead in terms of tech in Africa?
This will be my own assessment. You may not quote me outside Yeah.
Okay.
So I would say South Africa has a very well established infrastructure, IT-wise, and that. So they are leading in that. I will put Kenya as second. Then I'll put Nigeria as number 3. I would say between Rwanda and Egypt. So I'll just place them around.
Rwanda actually is they're investing a lot into.
There are some things, we're closing. There are some things that made companies, big tech companies, for instance, like Microsoft, to leave Nigeria. Maybe those same problems are in other African countries. Can we know some of this so that maybe they can learn from that? That's difficult.
Yes, so because I'm not Microsoft, so but from what I can, I haven't worked at Microsoft, right? I think what we need to do in Nigeria especially is so we have that talent, but I see that a lot of our talents, the rate of Japa migration really like impact for a global company that wants to set up like engineering hub in Nigeria. We need talent, and if our talents are migrating, just the same way we have in medicine, and we're experiencing that in tech also. So sometimes it becomes a challenge for companies to invest, to say, okay, if I'm here and all of you are going out, why not me catch you outside, right, and wait for you outside? So maybe
it's a terrible thing, but at least one thing has come out of this, that there is a future for tech in Africa, and we hope that our leaders will have the political will. That's the very major thing, the political will to do what is right. And until that happens, we may not catch up. Maybe in the next 30 years or even more. As we're trying to catch up, others are advancing even more than that. We don't want that to be a story of Africa forever. But this is where we will have to cut this segment. It's a developing story, because we're still going to be interested in how tech is developing in Africa. I would like to thank you, Oladipupo, for coming on the program. We're not letting you go now. We're just thanking you now until we wrap up the show at this point. Let's just take a break, look at the weather, and then when we return, we'll be taking you to Tanzania, to that wonderful site they call Serengeti. Just stay with us.
In the heart of East Africa lies one of the most breathtaking and iconic wildernesses on earth, Serengeti National Park. A vast expanse of grassland, savanna, and scattered woodlands, the Serengeti stretches across the northern Tanzania, embracing nearly 15,000 square kilometers of pristine nature. Its name, derived from the Maasai word Serengeti, means the place where the land runs on forever. For centuries, this land has stood as a sanctuary for life. An ancient rhythm pulses through the Serengeti, timeless, raw, and beautiful. Here, the world's greatest wildlife spectacle unfolds, the Great Migration. Over 2 million wildebeest, zebra, and gazelle move into a massive, seasoned cycle of survival, chasing the rains. Journey across the plains and rivers from the Serengeti into Kenya's Masai Mara and back again, driven by instinct, challenged by predators, and shaped by the land. The Serengeti is home to the Big Five: lion, leopard, elephant, buffalo, and rhinoceros. Among them, the lion reigns supreme, and the golden light of dawn prides rest on rocky outcrops, the kopjes. Surveying the plains, they roll. Leopards haunt the riverine forest, elusive and silent,
while elephants, wise and enduring, travel in matriarchal herds, shaping the landscape as they roam. The Serengeti is not only about the dramatic chase or the predator's gaze. It is a place of extraordinary biodiversity. More than 500 species of birds soar across the sky. Reptiles, insects and plants contribute to a finely balanced ecosystem, one that has evolved over millions of years. This land is also deeply intertwined with people. For generations, the Maasai have lived alongside the wildlife, their traditions echoing the rhythms of the land. Life here is eternal, a constant dance of predator and prey, of change and continuity. This is the Serengeti, a land of wonder, a world unchanged by time, a wild heart that beats for all of time.
Well, that was a wonderful sight. I learned that some of the very, very interesting footages we have in National Geographic are from that national park. So this is Africa, and we show you places in Africa that you need to visit. So no need for subscription on your satellite TV. Just go there straight and see what it was or what it is and all that. We've shown you places in Nigeria, in Egypt, and so many other places. We'll still show you places, and we'll show you cuisines and so many other things that are available in Africa. Eventually, this is where we'll wrap it up on the show this today. And then from Oladipupo.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been nice engaging in this conversation. Looking forward to by the next time we having this, we should.
No, have it in Serengeti.
No,
that's a brilliant idea.
It can be just you and I. Both of them, they are scared. So
he was going to say something about tech, but you were talking Serengeti.
I don't know why.
We can go and do tech. We can go and do tech
in front of the lions.
Yeah,
that would make a lot of sense.
Olamide.
So it's a pleasure to have you guys join us. Remember that we always have to talk something interesting that concerns Africa, and that's what we do here. My name is Olamide Onwuka. I'm signing out for now.
Olamide always like sounding like a professor all the time. Just sign out and go. Just
try sounding like that as well.
I'm sorry, I don't sound like that. Anyway, it was nice being on the show today. I really learned a lot about tech in Africa.
I've taught you. Yeah. I schooled you. I did.
Go ahead, Aghogho, please.
I schooled her. Yeah.
Just say bye. We have to do some things behind time.
Okay, well, think Africa, think everything good about Africa. Don't wait to be paid to be patriotic. This is our continent, and unless we sell ourselves out, I'm not saying sell ourselves short, but we sell ourselves to the outside world, they may not get to know us as well as they should know us. Africa is more than some people outside see it, and it's our responsibility to make them know what we really are. My name is Nyamgul Agaji. I invite you back for another edition of this program. Bye for now.